Warning. Censorship. Warning. Censorship. Warning. Censorship. Warning.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Rebel News live stream on this, a Tuesday, November 30th, 2021. I'm David Menzies, and my co-host, well, let me tell you about my co-host. She goes by the initials SGR, which my colleague Yankee thinks stands for She's Got Rifles. Well, that's not what it stands for, but she does have rifles. She is the she-devil with a sword. She is the Khaleesi of Northern Alberta. She is Sheila Gunn Reid. How you doing there, Sheila?
David, I'm 100% better now that I've talked to you. I love my co-host on Monday, Adam, but he just doesn't have the enthusiasm about me that you do. And I feel like every woman should have a very enthusiastic co-pilot in their life. David, though, I got to tell you.
Yes.
I don't know what you're doing, but you look great. I feel like Lady Menzoid is finally getting her time and money's worth out of you. Look at you.
Money's worth. Well, that opens up a punchline that I dare not say, but I don't. Maybe it's my time. Today, you must know this. It is St. Andrew's Day, and that's a bank holiday in Scotland. And I'm wearing the Menzies tartan, one of our tartans. Isn't it beautiful? Is this the most beautiful tartan you've ever laid your eyes on, Sheila Gunn Reid?
No, the Gunn tartan is far nicer. It's blue and it's green, black in the background, a little stripe of red. It's actually very similar to the Alberta tartan, which is, kismet, right? It's perfect.
Yes. Well, there you go. But no holiday here, only in Scotland. But St. Andrew is the patron saint of Scotland. And maybe we can petition for that as a day off here. Who knows? Nah, I don't think that's going to fly in this political climate. But Sheila, so much to talk about. But before we get down to business, you got to do your spiel about what the ostensible policy reason is of this discussion. And of course, give a warning to our beloved YouTube subscribers watching on YouTube that at some point we have to bid adieu to the censorious thug platform, which is YouTube. There are some subjects we cannot talk about. I can't even say what subjects we cannot talk about. That's how they roll in silly Silicon Valley. So take it away, Sheila.
It's my biggest stress in the day, making sure that we check all the boxes to make sure that I don't murder our YouTube channel. Because I have to make sure that everything that goes out the door is YouTube compliant before we publish it on YouTube, or we have to do extra work and do a YouTube trailer to direct people to a less censorious platform. And I guess that takes me to what I'm about to talk about. So this is the Rebel News Daily live stream. It used to just be hosted on Friday, just by Ezra Levant. I know some of you are going to complain because I say this every time I'm on air, but I assume that we have new people here, and you guys should be welcoming to new people. So what we do is we start streaming on YouTube, Odyssey, Super U, and Rumble. But eventually we will have to evacuate from YouTube because, as David pointed out, we will run afoul of the YouTube restrictions. And there are certain things we can't talk about. For example, I can't show my blood work on YouTube. My scientific blood work relating to COVID antibodies, I can't show it on YouTube because I might be questioning the science of the public health authorities. So isn't that crazy? Like I can't even report, like, this is what a lab sent me. This is me. This is what's coursing through all my little capillaries. I can't even show anybody that. So we will come to a point in the show where we have to say, okay, bye-bye YouTube, but not bye-bye YouTube people. We suggest you join us over on one of the other three platforms, Rumble, Super U, and Odyssey, platforms that really don't care about your political leanings. They just have embraced the idea of being the new public square, the digital public square. And on those three platforms, you can support the work that we do in different ways because, as you may or may not know, YouTube has completely demonetized us. They made us ad unsafe a long time ago. But then they took away our ability to receive super chats from our supporters. So, I mean, that's soft censorship, obviously, cutting you off from the people who want to hear from you and want to support you. But we're working our way around that. And we don't want to abandon the people who largely watch us on YouTube. There are 1.5 million of you. Some of you hate watch me, but you know what? It's all the same to me. And so if you wouldn't mind, when we finally sign off of YouTube, if you wouldn't mind just joining us over on the other platforms, or you know what? Give up on YouTube altogether and just migrate over there.
I'm with you there,
And that's
Sheila.
it.
Yeah, love me, hate me, but for God's sakes, don't ignore me. That is the kiss of death, whether it's a TV show or a sports team, right? I mean, that's the thing. When a sports team is doing terrible and people are screaming for the resignation of the GM, you know, or the manager or the coach or what have you, people might think, oh, that sports franchise is going downhill. No. That means people care. It's when people don't know anything about what's going on and they shrug, and I can't remember the last time I ever tuned in. That's when it's dire. Kind of like what the Toronto Argonauts are going through in this market. And there is some news that this might be the last game coming up this Sunday, the Eastern Final with the Hamilton Tiger Cats. There's speculation this could be the last CFL game played in Toronto, that MLNSE might just fold their tent and goodbye to the Argos. And I just wonder how many people care. Going back to the 70s, they used to pack the stadium. It's a tragedy. But like I said, the point is, whether you love us or hate us, please don't ignore us. And even if you do hate us, please send in a super chat. Help us keep the lights on, because you'll miss us when we're gone, folks. Right? In any event, well.
Wait, before you move on, love us or hate us, here's your chance to vote for us. So it's the Viewers' Choice Awards. We started this last year. We're doing it every year. ViewersChoiceAwards.ca, where you can vote for your favorite Rebel. And this list is so much longer than last year. Last year, my competition was not as great. Avi won, naturally. I think, though, David, you were probably a very close second place. I'm not sure. I wasn't privy to the official results because I'm in the competition. But you can vote for your favorite Rebel News journalist, and you can use whatever criteria that you want to select your Rebel News journalist, but cast your ballot, and Ezra gives out the award to us at our company Christmas party, and I don't quite know what that's going to look like this year, but please vote for David, vote for Sheila, vote for whomever is your favorite, and share with your friends so that they get an opportunity to vote for me too.
Officially, our Christmas party has been canceled, folks. But anyways, two things about the Viewers' Choice Awards. Sheila, are we using Dominion voting machines, or is that too sensitive for the YouTube people? And secondly, how close to the ballot box will High Energy Andrew Says get to this year? Because there was a bit of a controversy last year, if I seem to recall. Ballot box stuffing. Anyways.
I'm not sure, but there was some jiggery pokery, as they say, happening last year. Mm-hmm. And Eitan and Ezra quickly identified it and put a stop to it. But if people worked as hard on their videos and their journalism as they do on ballot box stuffing, it would be a much more interesting competition. That's all I have to say.
Too bad Ezra and Eitan were not around in the U.S. for that election last year.
No, David, we can't even talk about this stuff on YouTube. What are you doing?
No, I'm not implying anything. I'm just saying it's too bad they weren't around. But you know what? I don't like this contest because I don't understand technology. Me being a unfrozen caveman journalist, your tall buildings and fast-moving cars frighten and confuse me, Sheila. So I don't know how to game it. And it also harkens memories of that incredible scene. Alec Baldwin, say what you will about him, but back in the early 90s when he filmed Glengarry Glen Ross, that 10-minute cameo, he should have won the Best Supporting Actor Oscar when he comes in as the heavy from Mitch and Murray downtown, and they have that infamous sales contest. First prize, Cadillac Eldorado. Second prize, set of steak knives. Third prize, you're fired. I live in mortal fear if I'm in the bottom rung. Ezra and Tan are going to call me into that office again, and I'm going to have to do that. Johnny LaRue, oh, please, Mr. Caballero, give me one more chance, please, please. So that's why I don't like this contest. In fact, I'm supremely nervous about it, if you can't tell from the cadence of my voice. But anyways, we'll just have to live with it.
Speaking of, I know Mr. Producer's like, get to the news of the day, but you mentioned Johnny LaRue, and I'm wearing my John Candy Kenosha Kickers shirt. Gus Polinski and the Kenosha Kickers. My daughter's favorite Christmas movie, Home Alone, as you'll know. You know, he's the polka king of the Midwest. And I was able to find a band T-shirt for it.
Wow. Keep that, Sheila. That's a winner.
Forever.
And,
forever. Sorry, David, what's your favorite Christmas movie? And viewers at home, what's your favorite Christmas movie? Why don't you chat us and let us know what your favorite Christmas movie is?
You know what? I think it's a two-way tie in terms of traditional Christmas movie and something a little newer in the last 15 years. Of course, It's a Wonderful Life. And what I love about It's a Wonderful Life too, Sheila, you know, when it originally came out, I think in 1941, and it was a summer release for some reason, it bombed at the box office. And then what happened is that 25 years later, it fell out of copyright, which was the greatest thing ever to happen to It's a Wonderful Life, because little local stations all across North America, since they didn't have to pay for it, they could show it, and they would show it around Christmas time. And then as the years went by, network and movie executives were blown away that this bomb from decades ago was now a beloved Christmas movie that the family would gather around and watch. So like I said, the fact that it fell out of copyright, best thing that ever happened to It's a Wonderful Life, exposed millions of people to it. There you go. Look at Jimmy Stewart. And, you know, how can you not shed a tear at some of those scenes? I mean, you know, if you don't, it kind of reminds me of the tagline, Sheila, for Phantasm. If this one doesn't scare you, you're already dead. Well, if you don't shed a tear at It's a Wonderful Life, I question your humanity. And my second one in this two-way tie, and again, don't blame me, folks, I'm only human, and I always cry at the end, even when I try not to. It's the Polar Express. And the animation might come across as, you know, it's that realism capture they use, might come across as creepy, but still, it's a beautiful, beautiful tale. And an interesting story about that in terms of the box office, because it's totally contrary to just about every movie release I can ever remember, Sheila. When it came out, and I think it was around 2006, if memory serves, the opening week wasn't spectacular. And usually a movie opens, the best weekend is the opening weekend. And then, Sheila, what happened? Word of mouth got around. It was released in November, and then, oh yeah, there's the hot chocolate scene. Lady Menzoid actually hates that scene, by the way. So, I guess she's thinking,
everything about this movie.
But every subsequent weekend throughout November into December, revenue went up, and it was solely from word of mouth. People going, you gotta see this incredible Tom Hanks movie called The Polar Express. So those are my two. What are your two?
Well, is Die Hard a Christmas movie? That's up for debate, isn't it?
I say no.
I do like Die Hard. I think it is.
I don't think so.
But my real favorite Christmas movie, naturally, Ghostbusters 2. That's my favorite Christmas movie.
Really?
Yep.
Okay. Wow.
I could go on a big long soliloquy, but it is about, like, people are fighting with each other and feeding the evil, which is very timely these days. And it's the Christmas season, and, you know, the evil is threatening to take over the city. This is the first Ghostbusters. No, this is the second one, because they're in court being prosecuted for being small businessmen. Don't get me started on how valuable the whole Ghostbusters franchise is. Like, the first one, It's about a small businessman and people escaping academia to actually earn an honest living. And then the city steps in and says, oh, no, you can't. We've got all these rules and regulations. And all of a sudden, ghosts are loose in the city because of a stupid government rule. And the EPA, by the way, the EPA is in the mix there. So that's two of my most favorite movies. Anyways, AD, I'm very sorry that I even got started on this topic. I know there's lots of things that you want to talk about today, so let's get into it.
I'm going to end this with a movie that's going to lead into our topic, the scariest Christmas movie ever, made in Canada, I think 1971, Black Christmas, like the Phantasm tagline. Yep. If that one doesn't scare you, you're already dead. What an incredible low-budget horror film that really delivers. Anyone hasn't seen that, you want a horrific Christmas story, aside from maybe family members that you don't want to see coming to dinner, that's the one for you. And I say it leads into our story because of the title, Sheila, Black Christmas. According to the CBC and according to, I guess, anti-racism trainer Jazz Kalra, you probably wouldn't call that movie today Black Christmas if you were to film it today. Here are the words, folks. As you can see, they're scrolling down what you can't say, and you can see black male, black sheep, Black Christmas. It's not there, of course. You know, it's very odd, Sheila, and Blacklist is part of that ban list too. We get into the nitty-gritty. When can we use black and when can we not in terms of a negative sense? For example, just last week, what were a lot of people celebrating, especially south of the border? Black Friday. I didn't see that on that list. So when it's the name of a day where you're getting super duper bargains, is that okay to use the B word? I mean, you see how tricky this gets, Sheila?
This is also someone who's never met a sheep. Like I read this and I grew up on a sheep farm, and black sheep are unusual. You know, like they're it's not that they're unusual, but they're not as frequent as white sheep. So then when you're like, oh yeah, like they're the black sheep of the family, they're the odd one out. That's not racism. That has to do with the demographics of sheep. Like, I'm not sure what that has to do with people, but like, brainstorm apparently is something that we can't go near these days. Using the term brainstorm could be insensitive to those who have brain injuries or are neurodiverse. Are you
Sheila,
serious?
I'm so glad you brought up brainstorm, because what I used to do, my last rant of every year was New Year's predictions going into the following year. And one year I came up, like I was thinking of crazy things like, you know, politically incorrect terms that will be modified in the following year. Here would be my 10 predictions. And it was really, I was specifically striving for stupid stuff. Like, for example, great white shark. I mean, come on. We can't have the word great attached to white. That's just not right, right? And one of the words I came up with was brainstorm. That might indicate, you know, something going wrong with the brain. Remember, I didn't know this was a banned word. And sure enough, viewers from the UK, Sheila, reached out to me and they said, here's a story, I can't remember what town it was, they had actually banned the use of that word, brainstorm. So my comedy became prophecy. It became true without me knowing it. And again, you know, they're striving for, you know, negative words that are about blackness. But here's the thing, Sheila, what about other words? For example, a negative word is, you know, in this business or in the recording business is white noise. Well, wait a minute, white noise? Are you offended by that, Sheila? Maybe we should come up with some other word to replace white. And by the way, can we like talk turkey here? When it comes to white people, we're not white, we're like pinkish, wouldn't you say? And black people are brown, really. So the actual colors, black and white, nobody exists with that pigmentation, really. So, and again, you mentioned the black sheep of the family not being a racist term, but being like, it's actually a term of...
It's actually about sheep.
Yeah, and
like
being
it's about
exceptional.
Sheep.
Exceptional in the herd, right? So what bothers me the most about this is the CBC being cheerleaders on this piece, the fact that they're not asking the hard questions, there's no mockery over some of these stupid word bands. And really, wouldn't you just love to sit in, well, I mean, you wouldn't love it, but anti-racism trainer Jazz Calra, could you imagine going to one of her anti-racism training sessions, Sheila? It would be like torture, I'm sure.
You know, it's a neat racket these people have going for them, right? Like they're anti-racism trainers, but they also get to create the supply and the demand for their own business. So they go around calling everything racism, relabeling all these common words, common nomenclature. They get to relabel them as racism, thus creating the demand for them to show up and do racism training. This is a neat little gig they've got going there. I mean, one of the things they say, saying grandfathered in is a tool of the patriarchy. It's also speaking to patriarchy. A patriarchic family having supreme power over how things operate and manifest, and them possessing all the power and autonomy to make decisions and dictate over the course of the future. You know what I find quite ironic, but also perfect at the same time, is that first world problem is one of the things that they say is like one of those like words that we can't use anymore, which is absolutely a first world problem. Like there's this list of words that are hurting your feelings every day. That's a first world problem right there. People in the world need water, they need electricity, but no, we've got a list.
Yeah. But only they would be blind to the perverse irony. And if grandfathered in is a sign of the patriarchy and therefore must be banished, would these people have any trouble with the term Mother Nature, Sheila?
No, of course not.
Yeah, but I guess Father Time can't use that. But that's the thing, the hypocrisy. Once a word that is, and in this case, Mother Nature, well, why isn't this an example of the matriarchy, right? If we're playing that card. Mm-hmm. And also, maybe even the term mother, because we had that private school in Toronto, they banned Mother's Day and Father's Day because of worries of children that didn't have mothers and fathers.
What are we now? I forget what would they call us, lactating people? Birthing persons. I was like, are we lactating people? What are we doing there? Yeah. I mean, look at this again. Now? I don't know. David, don't say it. don't do it. I know. Don't you dare, David Menzies, bite your tongue.
And you know what's funny too? Is I look at, remember when we were playing Menzoid Bingo, I wanted to get one of those printed out before I came on air, because you sent in copy for a video, and it was like, all I heard from Margaret was, this is like a full card of Menzoid Bingo, this whole story. And she's right, as much as she's a cheeky little monkey for coming up with this Menzoid Bingo spiel, I'm looking at some of these words that I use. Testicular fortitude, right? Oh, no. Talk about patriarchy. Let's see. There's nothing shaken but the bacon. I'm sure that might be offensive to some people or some religions. I don't know. Anyways, I know. There you go. But we're not going to subscribe to this CBC template, are we, Sheila?
No. We don't have the money to pay for racism trainers to tell us that we're racist because we used words like first world problem. What a scam. Okay, let's, AD whispered in my ear that we really got to get moving here. Okay. And that's my fault, AD, because I started off a conversation about Christmas movies, and I'm very sorry. Next thing we need to talk about on the list is Jihadi Jack. So I don't know if people remember Jihadi Jack, but he is a British-born terrorist who's seeking the help of politicians in Canada to get him out of a Syrian prison so he can live a life of freedom in Canada. Following the template of Omar Khadr, except Omar Khadr was, at least an active Canadian citizen for a time. John and Sally Letts have approached MPs and senators asking for meetings to assist their son Jack. Assisting their son Jack started a long time ago. Not now. It's too late. He's a terrorist. We don't need him here. Enjoy your time in a Syrian hellhole. Also, we're not allowed to say hellhole, are we? I think that's like one of those things that the CBC racism school say you can't say. So, this family, by the way, they also have a public relations consultant.
Isn't that amazing?
Every terrorist needs a public relations consultant. However, Omar Khadr had the CBC, so he just sort of cut out the middleman there and saved his money. Nikita Bernardi, a public relations consultant working on behalf of the family, makes an empathetic pitch for a man who has admitted to being a member of ISIS and willing to detonate a suicide bomb, except he didn't, so he wasn't all that willing. He probably just encouraged other people to do them. Jack, who is 23, poor fella, is being held without. He's the same age as my kid, so I don't have a lot of sympathy here. I also like how they use the pictures of him looking like a young guy, like they used to use pictures of Omar Khadr when he was like 13, and it's like, no, he's like 6'3" and 220 pounds now. He's being held without charge and therefore arbitrarily and illegally since 2017 by Kurdish forces in overcrowded and unsanitary prison conditions.
Good.
Bernardi wrote last week. I don't know. I'm not losing any sleep over this. No. Jack Letts was born in Britain in 1995 and beyond some trips to Canada to visit relatives, has never lived here. He was raised in the UK, educated in the UK, converted to Islam as a teen in the UK, and went to Syria in 2014 at the age of 19 because he rejected life in Britain. Okay, well, you know what? Careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. Sorry, I've got nothing here in my heart for this guy.
100%. And by the way, I do take offense at the nickname they've given him, Sheila, Jihadi Jack. Let's be honest. How about Jihadi Jackass? I think that's more fitting in terms of this character. The bottom line, Sheila, is he was born in Britain, and I think he's lost his British citizenship. Haven't they? Hasn't he been stripped of his citizenship? So why do we have skin in the game for someone who's only visited Canada, was not born here? I mean, the only link is his father, right, that I believe has dual Canadian-British citizenship. But the thing is, look what, until very recently, we had, and they're not exclusively the only prisoners abroad, the two Michaels, over 1,000 days in their Chinese hellhole. And look how long it took them to get out. We have also bona fide Canadian citizens, I don't know what the number is, Sheila, in various hellhole prisons around the world. And they are actual Canadian citizens. They are, in many cases, perhaps, innocent. Nothing's been proven. And I think before we go to bat for anyone rotting in a jail across the pond, I think it's the Canadian citizens we go to bat for, and not this loser who converted to Islam and decided to show his allegiance to Islam by joining a terrorist group. And by the way, how offensive is that to peace-loving Muslims, Sheila, that you convert to Islam and the first thing you do is not get a prayer mat, but try to outfit yourself with a suicide vest? I mean, talk about offensive. Well, and currently right now, if we're worried about helping Canadian Muslims abroad, let's help an actual one. There's I think his name is Hussein Salil. He's been detained by China since 2006. He's a Canadian Uyghur. Right. His wife lives here. I sent you to try to track them down, but I understand the family is a little bit, they just want to sort of keep to themselves. And, if I were them, I might feel that same way too, given the tentacles of the Chinese state spreading unabashed and unmitigated here in Canada. He was arrested in Uzbekistan and sent to China after his long-standing advocacy for the human rights of his Muslim ethnic Uyghur minority. So he was trying to advocate for his own people who are currently in concentration camps by, I think it's 1 million. Uyghurs are in concentration camps alongside Christians and other ethnic minorities in China. Their labor in the concentration camps are used to make goods for the Western world. There were even, I think it was Reitmans, by the way, who was accused, and I think it was pretty credibly accused of buying clothing that was produced in these concentration camps by imprisoned Uyghurs. The women there are forcibly sterilized. It's all the things, too, that the Canadian
human rights advocates decry happening in the residential schools here in Canada. For example, the Muslim children are taken away from their parents and not allowed to speak their language, practice their religion, and they're given non-Muslim names. They're given Chinese names. Like, this is images from a concentration camp here. And so he was arrested for trying to shine a light on what was happening to his people. He's a Canadian citizen, and he's languished there for heading towards 16 years. Sorry, I've got nothing in my heart for this actual jihadi. We should be helping this guy. He should be home.
Oh, 100%. And you know, Sheila, for the last several years, I've always maintained that perhaps the most overlooked, underreported story is what's happening to the Uyghurs in China. I mean, it is unbelievable. Where is the Islamophobia industry that is always decrying and denouncing, well, especially Israel, for example? Where are they when it comes to something that is very much resembling a genocide, and in great numbers at that? And we have that Canadian citizen all these years in prison. I mean, nothing. You know, I'm trying to connect the dots, Sheila, why it is that these aren't the right kind of Muslims for people to go to bat for.
I'm not sure, and I'm not sure if I can say the word totem pole, because I think that was on the list of things that CBC said that I couldn't use because they were racist. But I'm not sure where Uyghurs fit on the totem pole of social justice. But they are obviously pretty low down there. And the Chinese state, somewhere near the top, because they control how we talk about COVID. They control our supply chains. They control what our professional athletes believe at this point. So, yeah, I mean, it has a lot to do with that totem pole of social justice power. And above all else, I think China has really positioned itself on the top, above trans rights, LGBTQ rights, women's rights, reproductive rights, that old favorite of the left. China's at the top. They can get away with everything, including murder, against all those other protected classes that the liberals seem to love. China gets away with it all.
Well, it's astonishing, but then again, as our Prime Minister said some 7 years ago, Sheila, China is the basic kind of dictatorship he admires, and when it comes to getting things done. Oh, getting things done, like what? Rounding up people you don't like and putting them into camps? Wow. I wonder what Justin Trudeau's assessment of Mussolini in Italy and Hitler in Germany are of 80-odd years ago. I heard they were kind of efficient at getting things done, too. Anyways, it is absolutely despicable. And there he goes. China order. Blacklist of celebs. Who wrote that headline? Didn't you get the memo from the CBC? Ian Miles Chong. So
he can sort of get away with that. But the reason I say that China's at the top of the social justice totem pole is that China has ordered a blacklist of celebrities with abnormal aesthetic and content detrimental to social stability. And so China's Internet Regulation Agency, something that should make Justin Trudeau jealous, has ordered its internet service providers to create a blacklist of content creators who use vulgar hype and celebrity gossip to build a following. The regulator also called for celebrities with abnormal aesthetic to be blacklisted. The term abnormal aesthetic is commonly used to describe transgender and other unconventional lifestyles in China, including feminized men, which China recently placed a ban on in the media. Online celebrity culture and vulgar hype has been subjected to repeated bans in recent years, stated the Cyberspace Administration, China's online regulator, in a statement by Radio Free Asia. A clickbait culture that promotes abnormal aesthetics, sows discord among fans, and is having a negative impact on mainstream values. The content offered about some celebrities online is below standard, that's the state standard, and filled with gossip and revelations about private matters, while taking up space in headlines and hot search lists. And so they've, publications like TMZ, Page 6, and Tumblr would have a hard time surviving in China because of these new internet regulations. So transgender content, LGBTQ content, gender non-conforming content, China's having none of it. And yet they get away with it. They get to determine what celebrities like John Cena talk about, right? Remember that self-flagellation from John Cena? How gross, by the way. And this is perfectly fine. There will be no large-scale outcry from Hollywood because Hollywood doesn't care about those issues either. They care about selling their movies into China, and that's what they're going to do. So they're going to bow before Beijing so that they can get their money or their movies into the marketplace.
And you know what, Sheila, you're right. I am sure Justin Trudeau is jealous of these internet censorship bills. You know, that's what he's got on the front burner for this minority parliament to get the censorship bills that died on the order table when the Nothing Burger election was called. But you know what? There was that one term you noted, feminized men. Will that mean that Justin Trudeau will prevent those images of his father from the 60s and 70s, you know, wearing the red rose on the lapel and doing those pirouettes? He actually did pirouettes. If you don't believe me, kids, Google it. You know what, Sheila? I've never seen a heterosexual man do a pirouette unless he was in the circus or the ballet or something. So I guess Justin's going to have to censor those images of his father.
Half of millennial men in the Western world are not going to be allowed to have their images shown in China at this point.
Oh, what a
anyway,
world.
let's skip along.
We will move on.
Go ahead.
The Maxwell trial. Wow, Sheila, I know you have something to say about this.
Yeah, I really do. This trial is underway. Nobody really seems to care for some reason, and yet she's the only monster in all of this who will likely be held to account since Jeffrey Epstein met an untimely demise, however you might see that happened. But what I think is really quite remarkable here is you preface what's happening here and the media coverage here, which is almost none, really, versus what was happening with the Weinstein trial. And those were adult women, many of whom felt pressured. You know what? Might I suggest, if you want to learn about the Weinstein trial, Anne and Phelim McAleer, they did an incredible podcast. And what they did was they got the court transcripts every single day, hired voice actors, and just read them. And versus what you hear in the mainstream media versus what happened in court, two very different things. Sure, there's a power dynamic there and everyone was a creep show. But there weren't all the victims that everybody said there was. It wasn't quite the way that it played out in the mainstream media. And yet these are minor girls being trafficked, often out of country, into country, across state lines, by a network of powerful, well-connected people. I'm looking at you, Clintons, and yet very little media coverage, and I think that has to do with all the high-profile people involved here.
And you know what I found heartbreaking in the testimony too, Sheila, was the fact that Miss Maxwell had a perverse talent, if we can even call it that, for identifying young girls, and some of them were indeed minors, who had, I guess, issues. They were vulnerable, you know, and I'm talking mentally, psychologically. She would befriend them, take them into the exclusive areas of London for shopping, designer label city. Oh, pick whatever you love, honey. And grooming them to get on that plane, to go to that island, because that's where the quid pro quo came in, right? You think you're getting all that designer Chanel stuff for free? Oh, no. And it broke my heart to think of these vulnerable girls. You've got a beautiful young daughter, Sheila. Could you imagine someone with such evil intentions as exploiting her, you know, for throwing some luxury fashion items her way, and then inevitably you're ending up, you know, on some island in some room with some pig, because that's what these men are. If you are sleeping with them, you are beyond a pig. Actually, pig is offensive to the swine community. It is so gross, it makes me ill. And I'm telling you, Sheila, I really want to know, as this trial goes on, I think there are a lot of rich and powerful men right now that are quaking in their boots in terms of, oh my God, do they have my name on some piece of paper or receipt or cell phone record or something? It's going to be interesting to see who's who in the zoo, so to speak.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are worried about to what extent Jillian will go to save herself.
Oh, every extent.
Every extent. Yeah, she's languished in jail for a couple of years, and who knows? Who knows what stories she will tell. So it says, ever since Eve was accused of tempting Adam for the apple, women have been blamed for the bad behavior of men, and women are often villainized and punished more than the men ever are. What a piece of garbage. This woman was an active participant and not a scapegoat. She was the Karla Homolka in all of this. She was the one that made girls feel safe enough to go to Epstein's house. And she was the one who got them into the car, took them shopping. She was the one that did all the grooming. A 15-year-old girl is not going to allow herself to be groomed by Jeffrey Epstein. This sophisticated socialite was the one that was doing the grooming here. She, in this duo, is the Karla Homolka. She's the one who made it possible. And yet, you know, when I think about these girls, and I think about the circumstances that they found themselves in, they were vulnerable girls. They were from often broken homes, different socioeconomic backgrounds than Maxwell and Epstein. And they were, you know, they were wooed by people who were paying attention to them. And when I see this, I think this is truly underpinned by the importance of the family. Girls with dads in their lives, families that are together so that parents are not, just trying to stay alive, but can actively be involved in their kids' lives. This whole mess is about the failings of society, and these two creatures are creations of it. These two are creations of the hedonist culture in which we live, where anything goes, where people with money can get away with anything, this elite class who treats everybody else like they're cattle. But it also is underpinned by the breakdown of the family and not allowing kids to be kids and wealth. And the power dynamic here. It's just everything I dislike about modern society is unfolding in this one case.
But, you know, Sheila, when it comes to Miss Maxwell specifically, here's what I don't get. Maybe you can enlighten me. You have to wonder, what was the motivation? And the first answer would be, well, money, finder's fees. But she didn't need money. She inherited a fortune. She didn't have to live like this. She didn't have to break laws. She didn't have to exploit and prostitute minors. She could have lived a luxurious life, and I'm saying it in the past tense. I know she's still with us, but I don't think she's ever going to get out of jail at the end of this trial. So what do you think attracted her to this horrible, sordid existence in the first place?
Well, her father was very much a powerful and grotesque man. And he was just mean. He was involved in a scheme that basically defrauded all of his employees of all their pension funds. And he was not a nice man. He was an abusive man. So I think that sort of imprinted on, I don't want to sound like a psychoanalyst, but it seems as though that was sort of imprinted on her early sexuality. But also she's just an awful, gross person. Much like, again, like Karla Homolka. Karla Homolka came from a good family. Like, they were a good family. Her mom and dad were fine. They were good people. She was just someone who chose evil. And so is Jillian Maxwell. She's just someone who had two paths in front of her. And like all of us, you can take one path or you can take the other. And she took the evil path with this evil man and did evil deeds when she had the opportunity, like all of us do, to reject those bad things that happened to us or learn from those bad things that happened to us and choose something different. She didn't. She took the easy way. And now she's going to go to jail, hopefully, for the rest of her life.
Maybe you're right. It's another example of is it the apple or the acorn doesn't fall far from the tree, Sheila? I know you're a farm girl. You might know that metaphor.
I think it's the apple.
Okay, there you go. Well, you know what? We have one more thing to do before we bid adios to YouTube. So just to give you YouTubers a heads up. And it is our wonderful Rebel store. Hey, listen. What is it, 26 days till Christmas time, I guess, Sheila? And, is the Black Friday sale still on, or have we extended that, or is that?
It is, because the code is still up. So if you guys are watching and you want to take advantage of that, it's still active live on the site. So get on that right now. It's the Black Friday sale. It's 10% off and free worldwide shipping.
And my apologies again to the state broadcaster, CBC, for calling that sale a Black Friday sale. I guess we have to come up with some other term. I don't know. Are we supposed to say African American Friday, or I don't know? It's so confusing to me, Sheila. But just check out this merchandise. Folks, if you want unique, or at least a semi-unique gift for one of your family, friends, family members, what have you, and by the way, I love that Vax Scan shirt. I saw that the other day at a protest. Isn't that something? I think I see perhaps maybe a vulgar gesture there, Sheila. I'm not sure. It's all so abstract to me. But I would love to wear that into a restaurant, or what am I saying, restaurant? You can't even sit down in a food court without your papers, please, Schnell. So that is the attire I want to wear when I go out for something to eat. And of course, there's the beautiful Menzoid t-shirt available in black and white. Can we say black and white? I don't know. Sheila, what's your number one item in the Rebel store you want to see under the tree at Christmas time?
You know, I think I have everything under the Rebel store that I want, but I really do. Yeah, there's the Faucino one. Faucinocchio. I know. I really like the Save the Pastors one. That one I don't have yet. And I have it in the bin under my desk. The Rebel with a Cause shirt, it sort of has that Coca-Cola font, and that it doesn't like scream like Rebel News. It's just sort of like it's something that you could wear and other Rebel viewers would know, like it's like a wink at other Rebels, but it's also just sort of a fun shirt that you could wear for really anything.
Well, here's the good news. No matter what choice you make at the Rebel News store, folks, there's no such thing as a bad choice, especially if you order the Menzoid t-shirt. Well, enough about that. I think at this point, we have to say adios to YouTube. And while we do, is it possible for Mr. Producer or the awesome Olivia to come in here? Because I think my battery on my earpiece has just gone on the fritz. So I'm hearing the studio feed of Sheila, and hey, I'm not Clark Kent. I can't exactly listen through solid steel walls here. So if I can get maybe a new battery or whatever's wrong with